Vegas and Boston are on winning streaks. We had several overtime thrillers and a couple of hat tricks. Details on that and more on this edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of the night in the NHL. During the regular season and the playoffs, we're available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. I'm Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan on the West Coast and the host of Locked On LA Kings. He's Shukri Wrights, a Boston Bruins fan on the East Coast, radio host and producer for 97.5 The Fanatic in Philadelphia. And together we are here to help you get caught up on all the goals, saves, big moments, and storylines from the night in the NHL with a big assist from our Locked On local experts. And Shu, as usual, a very busy Saturday, 13 games on the schedule. So let's get right into it. And we start with the Vegas Golden Knights on a winning streak as they were hosting the Nashville Predators. Vegas didn't have a lot of drama in this one. 7-2, they get the victory. Let's check in immediately with the host of Locked On Vegas Golden Knights, Chris Golick.
I'm bored. This Golden Knights game is boring. Looks like the Vegas Golden Knights are going to defeat the Nashville Predators by a lot. 6-1 with about 5 minutes remaining in the game. Goals by a lot of Golden Knights. Assist by a lot of Golden Knights. Kira Schmidt is playing really well in that. You had some physical stuff happening a little bit earlier in the game, but then that kind of calmed down. So Golden Knights taking care of business against the Nashville Preds, who had a very convincing victory the previous evening against the Colorado Avalanche. You wonder if that took too much out of them. Make sure you check out the Locked On Vegas Golden Knights podcast on YouTube and anywhere you catch your podcast. Your team every day.
Thanks to Chris Golick. He in the reclining chair there, just having a good time watching it. I wonder what that's like to sit back and watch your team just roll to victory. Maybe you can relate. I can't right now, but Pavel Dorofeev gets his 20th. Mark Stone scored his 18th. Those were part of the goal scoring for Vegas. They were down 1-0 in this one. Then they scored the next 7 en route to that easy victory. I guess it would have been asking a lot for Nashville to beat Colorado and Vegas on back-to-back nights. But the point right now is Vegas is on fire. 7 wins in a row. First place in the Pacific Division.
They are absolutely on fire offensively. And tonight, on Saturday night, they decided that fireworks would be more appropriate to produce their offense in that manner. So ultimately, like you have to be, if you're a Golden Knights fan, of course, you are thrilled based upon what you saw, especially the offensive input that was provided in that third period, where it was left and right, anywhere in the lineup, whether if it was your forwards or your defensemen on that would basically chipping in offensively. You pretty much got it all in spades for the Vegas Golden Knights. So it was an impressive showing tonight offensively for a team that is just absolutely steamrolling. And the teams that are really good have been really good. In the last couple of years, they're really now starting to rise to the crop in the Western Conference, and that's the Vegas Golden Knights as well.
Yeah, if they can get their goaltending figured out, they should be in the thick of things once playoff time comes around. How about your Boston Bruins? They went into Chicago and get a 5-2 victory for their 6th win in a row. They were down 2-0, then scored the next 6 goals, and a lot of guys helping out from the blue line. You got Mason Lohrei with a couple of goals and Charlie McAvoy as well. So the defense chipping in some offense in this one. The Bruins, again, 6 wins in a row, holding down that #1 wildcard spot in the East.
It was a pretty impressive showing tonight by the Boston Bruins, in which that, it was also important to note, siblings night, in which that the sisters of the Boston Bruins came along with the players on this trip as they're going to as they were in Chicago tonight. And look, it was pretty much it was great to see like Mason Lohrei and Charlie McAvoy score from the blue line, but then as well as it's good to see Kuznetsov continuing to play really well as well. So for the Boston Bruins, they continue to play good hockey and to play themselves back into a playoff spot. So it's definitely a good thing to have the sisters along in this one in Chicago at the United Center, because it certainly paid off on the ice.
I've heard of the mom's trip. I've heard of the dad's trip. I have not heard of the sister's trip. So that's a different spin on things. I did not know about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the Wild were in Buffalo to take on the Sabres, a couple of teams that obviously have really gotten hot here of late. Minnesota had cooled off a little bit, but they were able to get a 5-4 overtime win in Buffalo in this one. And the last time we checked in with Seth Topol, the Wild lost, and he just kind of took his headphones off and left his chair and didn't say anything in the report we had. So I'm guessing I think he'll have a little bit more to say in this one. Let's check in with host Locked on Minnesota Wild, Seth Topol.
No Matt Boldy, no Joel Eriksson, no Marcus Johansson, no Jonas Brodin, no Zach Bogosian for the Minnesota Wild against one of the best teams in the NHL since December 9th. And the Minnesota Wild pick up what Marcus Foligno called a character win. The Wild get the overtime winner from Matt Zuccarello, but Quinn Hughes adding a goal to tie the score at 4 apiece. And for the Minnesota Wild, after things looking like they were starting to fall apart over the last handful of games, that's a big one on the road for the Wild to start off the trip. Dallas and Colorado have not gained any ground on the Wild here over this skid. In fact, they have not been playing well themselves. So the Wild haven't lost anything other than games over this last stretch of hockey. So we'll see if they can get back on track with the win. For more on the Minnesota Wild, make sure you follow Locked on Wild wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Glad that Seth Topol had something to say this time, and he did have a lot to say because the injuries with the team. Matt Boldy is a huge one. That's going to be, hopefully he's not out too long, but Matt Zuccarello gets the overtime game winner on the power play as the Wild get that 5-4 victory, snapping their 3-game skid, and they are tied with Dallas, each 63 points for second place in the Central Division. For Buffalo, that's just their third loss in the last 18 games.
I mean, certainly it was one heck of a game, and then also in the Minnesota Wild's when they, at least for the time being, put a screeching halt on this Buffalo Sabres train that had been, wrecking through the league for the better part of the last month or so. So you talk about it was a critical game in which that I thought ultimately, like, Minnesota, despite the injuries, they really showed up and showed out offensively, and it was impressive to watch. Also, the tenacity of this Buffalo Sabres, who at one point they were down by 2 goals, but they didn't give up, and it was impressive to see, especially I guess we got into the second part of that second period. Peyton Krebs making it 3-2, cutting into the 3-1 lead, making it 3-2 Minnesota, and then Jack Quinn, tying up 11:34 of the second period as well. So it was good to see Buffalo show a lot of grit in this one as well. But it was one heck of a game in Buffalo between the Wild and Sabres.
Pretty good game in Ottawa as well, as the Senators are hosting the Canadiens. This one also goes overtime, and Montreal gets the 6-5 victory. Let's get a report on this one from one of the hosts of Locked On Montreal Canadiens, Laura Saba.
The Montreal Canadiens completed a comeback that should never have been necessary against the Ottawa Senators. Now, we're not going to begrudge them that win. Obviously, it's not ideal to have to do that. That point they gave up to Ottawa is probably not going to be lethal to them. Let's be honest, Ottawa's probably not going to be one of the teams that's competing with the Canadiens for those playoff spots in April, in March or April. If that actually happens, please feel free to bookmark this so that you can come back and tell me to eat crow. But in the meantime, the Canadiens were facing a team that is really struggling in goal and can't get a save right now, and they didn't really do much to test that, and they allowed the Ottawa Senators to take control of the game. They didn't really do much through 2.5 periods. They're really going to have to be better at that coming up, because Ottawa might have been the easiest layup opponent that they were going to get in the next little while, and they almost squandered that opportunity for a win. At the same time, Samuel Montembeault was great. Now on to the next, hopefully with more effort.
All right, thanks to Laura Saba for that. Cole Caulfield, of course, got the overtime game winner because that's what he does. 12th OT game winner in his career, extending his own Montreal Canadiens record, also his 24th goal on the season. Montreal 1 point behind Tampa Bay and Detroit for for the top spot in the Atlantic Division.
Impressive to see that the Montreal Canadiens, despite the fact that they did everything they possibly could to lose this game, still find a way to ultimately win. Especially in like 33 seconds into OT, Kolkoff is scoring the game winner. And for the Montreal Canadiens, it was pretty much like more of the same in which that like the young guns were stars in this one. We just talked about Cole Caulfield, but also Slavkovsky as well, who had 2 goals in this one. Also, Caulfield had 2 goals in this one as well.
And for Ottawa, if you want to see one of the best goals of the year, Tim Stützle had one between the legs that you might want to check out. But the Sens, they get a point, but there's 7 points out of the final wild card spot now in the East. Would the Blue Jackets stay unbeaten under their new coach? We'll give the details next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. There's nothing like being near the ice for a hockey game. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home's great, but being in the building is a completely different experience. The only thing that used to get in the way of going out to watch your team was getting the tickets. But Gametime has an app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experiences with just a few taps. I pull up the Gametime app, check out the upcoming NHL schedule, and can find tickets fast and easy. The app is incredibly easy to use. Browsing, comparing, buying tickets took just minutes. One of my favorite features is seeing the view from my seat before I buy, so I know exactly what I'm getting. The zone deals are clutch. You choose a section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save even more. Seeing NHL tickets available for as low as $25 makes it easy to plan a game night out. I really like that the fees are included up front, so there are no surprises at checkout. Knowing tickets are backed by the Gametime guarantee also gives me peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. All right, let's continue. And we had more overtime action. This one in Winnipeg, where the Maple Leafs get by the Jets by a score of 4-3. Max Domi with the overtime game winner. Let's get a report on this one from one of the hosts of Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs, David Morisuti.
Well, that's one way to end a road trip. I'm David Morisuti from the Locked On Leafs podcast, and it was a back and forth game between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Winnipeg Jets, and it was the Leafs who picked up the 4-3 victory in overtime. Max Domi picking up a great feed from Austin Matthews to get the overtime winner, and a crazy game. A lot going on in this one, especially near the end. A lot of chaos, a lot of shoving, a lot of shouting at the referees. Even Craig Berube was getting into it with the referees at the end of the game, with the Leafs picking up the win. And it caps off a 4-game road trip for the Leafs that saw them have some really good moments and have some unfortunate moments. But they do come home with the winning record on that road trip as they continue their push for a playoff spot. Mike DeStefano and I will break it all down on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks to David Morisuti for that. Austin Matthews also got his 24th goal of the year as well, setting up the overtime game winner. Toronto points in 12 of their last 13 games, 9 wins in the mix, and they are right now 1 point out of a wild card spot.
It was one heck of a game tonight in which that the Toronto Maple Leafs, it looked like this was not going to be their night, and they showed a tremendous amount of grit in that third period, in which that, like, the way that it ultimately unfolded was the fact that you got a huge goal from Oliver Ekman-Larsson to cut the Winnipeg lead to 3-2, and then Bobby McMahon tying it up late in the third period as well, and an overtime Max Domi obviously having the game winner, but just the way that they that they decided that they were going to essentially turn the Jets on, no pun intended, against the Winnipeg Jets and late in that third period, and they absolutely took over this game and grabbed that second point as well on the road.
We had the Blue Jackets in Pittsburgh to take on the Penguins, and Columbus pulls out the 4-3 win in the shootout to move to 3-0 under new head coach Rick Bowness. They've won 4 in a row overall. Let's get a check on this one from the host of Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets, Jay Forster.
Listen, I don't ask how, I just ask that they win in Pittsburgh, and for the second time this season, they did just that. Blue Jackets win 4-3 in a shootout victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins. Annoying to lose in regulation or allow the Penguins to tie the game at the end of regulation with about a minute left, but hey, Sidney Crosby is going to do Sidney Crosby things, right? It's tough to get too mad about that, especially Blue Jackets come back and win it. Monster performance from Elvis Merzlikins after a shaky first period, I thought, but revenge goals from former Penguin Zach Aston-Reese and former Penguin Danton Heinen, as well as a goal from Kirill Marchenko, and then Charlie Coyle gets it done in the shootout. Like, the vibes are good in Columbus right now, and I don't know how long these good vibes are going to last, but I sure am going to enjoy them while they are going. We're going to unpack all of this about the win on Monday's episode of Locked on Blue Jackets.
All right, thanks to Jay Forster for that. They are 6 points out of a wild card spot for Columbus, so still some heavy lifting to be done, but 4 wins in a row. They got the new head coach. It feels like a little bit of a breath of fresh air going on right now in Columbus.
Certainly, I mean, the change of a head coach has worked pretty well. They're now 3-0-0 on the Rig bonus, but also like part of this really good stretch for the Columbus Blue Jackets is that you're seeing like some of the young players and as well veterans are really stepping up nicely to help get the job done for the Blue Jackets, and as well as like Merzlikins, playing better of late, and I think that you got to give him credit as well as part of this recent turnaround for the Blue Jackets.
Pittsburgh continues to be streaky. They've now lost 4 of 5, but still in third place in the Metropolitan Division. Hurricanes at the Devils, Carolina, with the 4-1 victory thanks to Andrei Svechnikov, who had goals 14, 15, and 16 for the hat trick. 4th career hat trick for him, for a player whose name has come up in possible trade speculation for Carolina, but getting the job done in this one. Sebastian Aho had 3 assists, and Frederik Andersen allowed 1 goal on 29 shots in net. Nice road win for Carolina. They have 64 points. That is the most in the Eastern Conference. They're 2 points better right now than both Tampa Bay and Detroit, and they now have a 7-point lead atop the division on the New York Islanders. They've won 6 of 8, have the Hurricanes.
They've been on fire, and Andrei Svechnikov having himself a hat trick on the road, no less. It was definitely another impressive yet and dominant performance by the Hurricanes on the road against the Devils team that continues to struggle mightily. And there's a lot to like in this game, but also it really was another showing for by Svechnikov, who continues to submit himself as one of the key cornerstone players for this Hurricanes team that has huge expectations this season.
New Jersey now has lost 5 of their last 7. We have the Oilers rolling over the Canucks, 6-0 the final. Now it is Vancouver, and they've lost 10 in a row. But always nice of your Edmonton to get an easy win with no Connor McDavid scoring a goal. And Leon Draisaitl is not even with the team right now. He's left for personal reasons. McDavid did have an assist, 83 points, 1 more than Nathan McKinnon for the NHL lead. But you got Jack Roslovic with a couple of goals. You got Zach Hyman with a goal as well as Edmonton. Right now, second place in the Pacific. They're 4 points back of Vegas for the top spot in the division.
I mean, it was impressive tonight, the offensive clinic that they provided, given that that Connor McDavid was not a factor in this game at all. And as well as you mentioned, Leon Draisaitl being away from the team. So it was important. It was important to see how can the Oilers produce offense without 2 of those guys being much of a factor. Obviously, Draisaitl being away from the team, but you saw that up and down the lineup with Kapanen scoring, Podkolzin scoring as well, Roslovic scoring a couple of goals, and Zach Hyman being a force in this one as well. So it was very much impressive a win for the Edmonton Oilers to wrap up Hockey Day in Canada, by the way, this evening.
Still plenty of games to get to, including the SoCal rivalry going beyond regulation for a second straight night. Details on that next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. The NFL playoffs are here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see the pack loaded with multiple profit boosts. You can apply to bets that you like the most Open your Profit Boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. The boosts give you more juice on your bets that you already like instead of forcing you to bet on something new. Every play in the playoffs feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Make your picks, then apply your Profit Boost to go even bigger to get payouts during the playoffs. So visit FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost pack every NFL playoff game day. And if you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed's sponsored jobs. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed's job post helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost the post to people who are the best match for your role, and that really makes a difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored job posts on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results. Use Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. All right, let's check in with a rivalry matchup out west. Kings and Ducks went at it on Friday in LA. They have the rematch in Anaheim, and the result, unfortunately, for my Kings was the same. A Ducks win beyond regulation. They won in the shootout on Friday. This time, a 2-1 overtime victory. McKill Granlund gets the game winner in overtime. The Kings had 10 minutes of power play time in the second period. That's half of a period. They scored one goal, and it was with a two-man advantage. So the power play continues to be a huge issue for the Kings and cost them in this one for sure. Anaheim and LA right now are in a very, very crowded Pacific Division and wild card race. You've got Seattle, you've got San Jose, Anaheim, and LA, all with 51 points. Right now, Seattle has the third spot. San Jose is the one in the wild card, and the Kings and Ducks are right on the outside looking in. But it's very crowded right now, so all these points matter. The Kings get one, but the Ducks for the second straight night get two against LA.
I mean, the power play issues for the Kings can't be as bad as the Philadelphia Flyers. More on them a little later on, of course. But 1 for 6 on the power play.
You sure about that?
I knew you were going to say that, which is why I said that, because it was like you're thinking, you sure? I'm like,
I don't know about that.
But it's bad, but not to pile on. Like I will say this though, it was jarring to see how bad the offense has struggled again yet tonight against this Ducks team that is now slowly beginning to rise back to life after a pretty nasty stretch of hockey where they have not been playing well and ultimately and in this one, like, the Kings just, even though it was only a 2-1 a low scoring win in OT, but they didn't really seem to have much answer in terms of slowing down or shutting down some of the young stars like McTavish or Granlund, for the fact of the matter.
Panthers are at the Capitals. Florida getting a 5-2 win. They scored the final 4 goals of the game. Let's get a check on this one from the host of Locked On Florida Panthers, Armando Velez.
Response for the Florida Panthers in Washington. After giving up 9 goals in Carolina, the Panthers respond by defeating the Washington Capitals by a final score of 5-2. 2 empty netters to make the score look worse than it actually was, but a really tight game where the Florida Panthers ended up falling behind by a goal, giving up 2 unanswered after taking the first lead of the game. But the Panthers were starting to buzz from the beginning of this one with Sam Reinhart in that line being in the offensive zone for over a minute and a half, and the defense consistently getting in on the play, protecting both sides of the ice, whether it was Tobias Bjornfot protecting the blue line and it resulting in a goal, even though he didn't get a point, and then Uvis Balinskis as well on the power play doing the same thing, resulting in a power play goal. The Sam Bennett line was incredible, 11 shot attempts for him and setting up AJ Greer. The Panthers are now 6-0-0 after losing by 4+ goals and 11-3-1 after a regulation loss.
All right, thanks to Armando Velez for that. Panthers have won 3 of 4. They are 4 points out of the final wild card spot. In the East for Washington, they're a point back of Pittsburgh for third in the Metro and 3 points out of a wild card spot.
An impressive bounce back win for the Panthers, considering the previous night where they got absolutely annihilated. Put it nicely. So to put it succinctly, like they wanted to make sure they came out and at least like make a statement that, hey, we can bounce back from the embarrassing effort the other night, and they did. They bounced back very nicely, in which that like you saw. You saw a resilient bunch especially from a 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion team, and it was impressive to see, especially watching AJ Greer and Sam Bennett do their thing as well.
We had the Kraken at the Mammoth, Utah, getting a 6-3 win. It was tied 3-3, and then the Mammoth scored 3 unanswered goals in the third period to close it out. Big game for defenseman Nate Schmidt. He had 4 points, 2 goals, numbers 3 and 4 on the season. The game-winning goal included, and he had 2 assists as well. Nick Schmaltz added his 18th of the year for Utah. They've won 4 in a row. They're also 6-0-1 in their last 7, and they have the number 1 wildcard spot in the West right now.
And for this Utah team, they're going to need much more of from Nate Schmidt moving forward if they're going to continue to make noise in the playoff race out west, along with more from Schmaltz as well. And like tonight was a huge night for Krause, Schmaltz, and Schmidt, and it showed. And like they were absolutely dynamite tonight in this game against the Seattle Kraken. So it was an impressive win for Utah on a night where offensively they were just they were pretty much clicking on all cylinders, with the exception of the power play, of course, but no big deal. But they dominated on 5-on-5.
Jordan Eberle gets his 17th for Seattle, and goalie Philip Grubauer allowed 5 goals on 29 shots. Seattle, after winning 8 of 9, has now lost 5 of 6. Again, they're tied with the Sharks, the Kings, and the Ducks, all with 51 points in that battle for playoff positioning in the Pacific Division and the Western Conference wild card. We had the Rangers at the Flyers, and New York gets a big 6-3 win from a big game from Mika Zibanejad. Let's get a report on this one from the host of Locked On New York Rangers, John Chick.
So the Rangers just won. That was pretty weird. But I think the biggest thing coming out of this game, the biggest talking point, is that Artemi Panarin, that could have been it for him as a New York Ranger. I mean, the letter 2.0 went out yesterday. And while it doesn't really feel like anything is super imminent, it's pretty obvious that the Rangers are going to be making some changes. And the biggest domino to fall, I think, is going to be Artemi Panarin. I mean, he's an unrestricted free agent after the season concludes, and the Rangers are going nowhere fast this season. So there's really no reason to hang on to him. They met with him. Drury and Panarin met and talked about potentially trading him, mentioned to Panarin that they're not going to be extending him. So, I guess my best advice for Ranger fans, if you've enjoyed watching Artemi Panarin, if you've enjoyed watching a lot of these core players over the last, however many years you want to go back, just continue to enjoy it and don't take anything for granted, because times are definitely changing with this franchise, and you got to figure it's only a matter of time before Panarin and a couple of these other guys are out the door. But it was nice to see them, kind of band together for this game here, put up a 6th spot on the Flyers, and at least for an afternoon, look like a good hockey team. So, yeah, got to break it down in the next episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Do not miss it.
Thanks to John Chick for that. Mika Zibanejad had a hat trick, and Artemi Panarin 2 goals. As he talked about, the letter went out to the fans. The retool is coming. There's going to be changes, and they've already told Artemi Panarin they're looking to trade him. So, Rangers are moving on. For Philadelphia, it was not a good night for Alexei Kolosov in net. 3 goals on 3 shots and got pulled, and that's not good.
No way.
That's me in net. I could have done that.
I mean, it was bad in Philadelphia today between the Rangers and Flyers. For the Flyers, that is, their struggles continued. In which they did start well. Like Travis Konecny scoring the opening goal for the Flyers, but after that, things just went downhill fast and very fast. Faster than you can say the Broad Street line. So I think that like for the Flyers aspect, they have some serious question marks that they're going to have to answer because there are struggles, and then there's this, and like, but as far as for the New York Rangers, you talk about the letter 2.0. We all remember the first one from back in 2018, but this one felt as if like this was a final horror, if you will, with this current core that's currently on the Rangers right now. Like, so we'll see what happens in terms of the changes that are coming up.
Rangers snapped their 5-game skid. For Philadelphia, they have dropped 6 in a row. They are 5 points out of a wild card spot in the East. Our final game was in Calgary, where the Flames knock off the Islanders 4-2. A little bit of surprising result there. Calgary jumping out to a 4-0 lead. New York did score the final 2, but could not get any closer. Igor Sharangovich gets his 10th. Justin Kincaid his first of the year, and Dustin Wolf allowed 2 goals on 30 shots. David Riddick allowed 4 goals on 19 shots in the loss for the Islanders. Flames have won 3 of 4. For New York, they are still in second place in the Metropolitan Division. They've got a 2-point lead on Pittsburgh.
And even though it was a tough loss for the Islanders, they are still very much fortunate to be second place in a division. For the Calgary Flames, it was pretty good to see. It was pretty good to see how they were essentially we brought the game to the New York Islanders offensively, and they posting well on this team throughout much of this game. So I think that for the Calgary Flames, this was an impressive win at home against an Islander team that is looking to continue its stranglehold on a playoff spot in the East.
If you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, find the Locked On NHL Team podcast and YouTube show for your squad. Locked On NHL Game Night's here for you every night, covering every game until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. For Shukri Wrights, I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.